I want to make people happy by designing their work environment. But what is work? Did you ever ask yourself this question? This is a question that obsessed me in the last 5 years as a designer. I graduated in 2010 in the middle of the financial crisis, and I remember my director saying, "There's going to be no job. You'll have to invent your own job." This is a sentence that sticks to my mind as a mountain to climb. And let me tell you, I'm not a mountain climber. I was born and raised here in Naples by the sea. So tonight, I want to tell you a story of how I created my design career path, investigating this idea of work and how work can be designed. So work is something that has always been made, but never really be designed. And let me be clear here. We always design our workspaces. But what we missed was designing work as an holistic experience that combined processes, so our intellectual processes, or how we work and how we operate our task on a daily basis, combined with space. And I think this is a missed opportunity for design, because work affects our life and society in general on so many levels. The first level is definitely the individual one. Everybody has a different meaning for what work means for them. And 40% of the workforce will work independently by 2020. This is a data that comes from the US, but in other Western countries, the numbers are similar. This means that we want to take more control and ownership on our work processes. This also affects the organization. Organizations tend to design new workspaces that are more open and collaborative, but very often they miss the point, because they don't consider how people interact and collaborate. What are the human processes and interactions that take place on this beautiful space they design? And finally, the urban level. A lot of cities are changing and developing because of the rise of co-working spaces that open all around the place. Actually, most of those co-working spaces open in heritage building and the repurposed spaces of the cities. And even mobility has been affected by that, because we have a huge flow of people navigating the city at different times in different ways. Big manufacturer players are also experimenting on the combination of mobility and workspaces. And so, through the analysis of all these aspects, how can we actually come up with a definition of what work is? Well, I spent my entire PhD, and I constantly have conversations with business leaders and managers to try to figure out this definition. And I really didn't find one. But what I found, there are some very strong recurrent elements of work. So I managed to destructure work in some of the elements that I will show you now. The first one is really, again, about people, so policies and governance. So governance is about how teams are structured, how people collaborate with each other, what are the different roles that they play, and what are the rules, principles that they follow in their work operations. There is a great example of a restaurant in California that allowed chefs to go on a sabbatical every few years. These chefs go around, do research, write books, and then bring back all this knowledge to the restaurant, sharing it with other chefs. And of course, they don't only improve their own experience of work, but they also improve the experience of the entire crew, because people can benefit from this knowledge, and they also affect the actual final product, the food that they put on your table. And then the second elements are elements that are more linked to processes, so processes and methods. Processes and methods has always been under the attention of management, but now we see more and more designers crystallizing those processes into visual tools that can be shared around the organization. And finally, spaces and tools. Yes, those are the elements that are much more tangible and understandable, but at the same time, nowadays we have an extra layer, which is the digital one. So all the smart technologies, smart furniture, that allow us to track data of working spaces, and so get information on how we can manage the flow of people and the collaboration. So on the basis of this new scenario, how design actually comes into play? Well, I mean, there are different ways. Of course, design has always been very good at understanding the current scenarios and user in context. This goes under the general term of human-centered design. I use design thinking, which is a specific methodology under human-centered design, to help my first clients redesign their work environment. This is an example of a journey map. So this is a map that don't only analyze how process work, but they actually analyze the experience of people and of the user and also the employees of the organization. And those are generally very co-creative sessions involving management, users, and even workers at any level of the organization. So design is bringing in a lot of visual tools and collaborative techniques to allow decision makers to take the right decision on how to change their work environment. But work is not just about the present. Work is really also about the future. A lot of organizations are worrying about the change in technology that can disrupt their businesses. And independent workers, well, are concerned with the idea of being substituted by automation. So how do we explore possibilities in the future? There's a thing called speculative design, which is a very specific discipline in design that allows to analyze current trends and signals and project them into future scenario, create those future scenario, and then create objects from the future. Those objects are not really from the future. They are not supposed to be manufactured and sold. They are just excuses for creating conversation and investigate the interaction that people in the future would have with these products and services. On the basis of this investigation and this reflection, we can have more information and we can understand better what decision to take in the present. And then finally, of course, what I call the craft aspect of design. We have elements like lighting, colors, smell. Those are all elements that are in the toolkit of designers since decades. But now, with the idea of improving the flow of the collaboration within our organization, we can repurpose those tools to different ends. By combining the interplay between people, space, and process, and leveraging on existing design capacity, I managed to understand like an approach to put together a framework to actually redesigning work, redesigning all the elements of work that I managed to structure through the exploration I was talking to you about. And how do I do that? I do that by setting up temporary work environments. Temporary work environments are delimited space and in time where people can experiment new processes of work. And they can take place in a classroom, like in this case. They can also take place during a workshop using a combination of 3D elements, 2D elements, and simulating the interaction of digital elements too on top of it. These allow two things. First of all, personal development. People that are in an organization and they need to change their work process, they generally show resistance to that. Because everybody is happy in their comfort zone, right? We learn how to work in a certain way. We do that on a daily basis in autopilot, and it's hard to change. But this small, safe environment allows us to test, think, and fail without any consequences. They can also take place in an actually one-to-one environment. This is an example of how we intervene on an hospital. And just by changing the furniture and changing the way that the process of receiving patients, addressing their condition, and onboarding them on the right department, really helped doctors to navigate the process and to understand how the system could be improved. So instantly, by setting up this temporary environment, people bring in frustration, challenges, concern that they have outside this temporary work environment. This is because the temporary work environment creates a microcosm for people to experiment in a safe space. And so how do you do this? How do you need to approach this type of interventions? Well, you always need to be what I call an authorized subversive. So you're authorized because you're generally called in to help. But the only way to help here is not to go by common sense, but to put people slightly outside their comfort zone. And everything that my research and my path showed was that this approach to work, it really changed by creating a situation where the human are the center of the process. And so it's about bringing back the humanistic quality to work. It's easy to change objects in the workspace, change space, change lighting, but it's very difficult to change people. And so, to conclude, how do I design the future of work? Well, I didn't really design the future of work, but I think if we together put the human at the center of future work, we're going to manage to design workplace as an happy place. Thank you.